So Rob, I think that's just a few of the challenges. Did I miss anything?
I think one of the interesting things, so when you apply to be a Verizon Innovative Learning district or school, we did so prior to the pandemic. So I don't think we realized when we were applying for it what future would lie ahead for us. And I think one of the most interesting things that I find from my non-VILS schools is their approach to technology is trauma informed. And so many times they relate the use of technology in the classroom or that blended learning pedagogy as remote learning, and they reference it to that. And so I think one of the great things to have is to have someone like Lindsay or a VILS coach in there to really be intentional about what teachers, what they can do, and really kind of inform them in a way that helps create an efficiency for them and create more engagement for students. I think you're because we launched this during the pandemic, I think we fight that as a district and from a classroom level all the time. You always have that 20% that are always going to excel, but to move the average is a lot more difficult when you have these trauma-induced activities that people really relate to remote learning.
Agreed. So we're going to jump in and talk about what we did to get there. We built kind of like a framework of creating a VILS cohort. And I would say that the first thing I had to do was get these people to be like friends, like more than friends, to be a family. And I wanted to do this very quickly. So we started with purposeful play. And you've heard about this probably with primary early childhood. There's a lot of research around Reggio Emilia and Montessori of these ideas of having purposeful play for students to explore. Same is true at all ages, my friends. The research is out there and it's very strong, that we need to all have purposeful play. And we tapped into Jed Derryberry's book, The Playful Classroom. If you have seen this book before, put a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with this book. I'm just curious on this one. Oh, wait, we've got a few friends in here, a couple of us here. It is a dynamic book written by Jed Derryberry and Julie Jones around the idea of putting play in the classroom. So we spent a lot of time in this to begin with. And one of the first things we did was we took them outside to play with sidewalk chalk. Now, this might seem a little wild, but there was purpose behind it. This is actually a way to use literature and immerse students into what it is they're reading. So we chose just, the Three Bears, Goldilocks Three Bears, or, another kind of children's literature just for the sake of time. But you can do this with middle school students, no matter if they're reading complex novels to short stories. They would take a scene from the book and put it down on the ground with sidewalk chalk. But then it gets kind of interesting is you have to put yourselves in the drawing as well. And so Rob, he came out and he played with us on that day as well. But Lindsay, why don't you talk about the purposeful play?
So the purposeful play has been huge for me. When Smoke started all of this and said, we're going to go take the chalk outside, or we're going to do this with, we've done things with every form of art project you could ever think of. And I'm not one of those people. But when she said this and she says, we're going outside, it was kind of like, oh, wait, I'm not just going to sit here and learn. I'm not just going to sit here and learn another tech tool. It was, we're really going to do this. And through that purposeful play, we took a lot of resources and tools and things that we could bring back to our classrooms. But as part of that, we also spent time laughing and giggling and building those super friend connections and really figuring out like where everybody's strengths lie. I mean, everybody in our group knows that I'm not the one to draw things, but I'm really good at making sure that everything gets done. And so just by having that purposeful play between our coaches was something that really opened my eyes to like, you know, I used to teach elementary, but never taking that time to look at how that play gave us those opportunities to really look at everybody's strengths.
And Rob, I mean, he's a good sport, but I think it's important for him to come play with us as well. It shows his great leadership of willing to support the VILS program. And then, I mean, how many CEOs just jump out and play very often? So, or CIOs, I mean, I don't know, Rob, hopefully you're having fun.
Oh, I am. And, you know, I think what I love about it is it's a great example to model professional development and what you want to see in the classroom. You want kids to learn by doing. And I think we should really model our professional development around how we want kids to learn as well. And there's not an idea Smoke hasn't thrown my way. And I appreciate her willingness to be creative and all the different examples that we do for classroom practice.
And another activity that we did, which is very easy to replicate in your own community, is that we used Rory's story cubes, and that's on the workbook as well. There are several videos and things that are out there that actually show how to use Rory's story cubes. If you're unfamiliar with them, they're just dice with icons on them. And you don't even have to use these. You can pull images from the Noun Project. You can pull images from Canva if you'd like, but just finding ways to spark conversation. In this activity, we pulled two images of two icons together, and then in small groups, they had to design an image that would merge these two things together. So if you've got a light bulb with the drama kind of scene going on, we've got a spotlight with characters. This is not a long-term experience. This is just a short 2-minute activity. And I will tell you, I use this with students as well in the middle school world when I need to engage their creativity for writing, if I need to engage their creativity for discussion work. Having these little bitty things, sometimes called brain breaks, but I think it's a brain engager, is a great way to not only build community, but get them thinking along the way. And then I also run a lot of global collaborative projects, a lot. It's really 3 that I do every year, but I've been doing them a long time, so it feels like it's a lot. And one of those is called Awesome Squiggles. It's my favorite project I do. I've been running it since about 2014. And in this, I put a set of 4 lines up on a website and then ask teachers to download these lines and ask students to create art out of it. So I'm going to have you play with us just a little bit. If you can imagine these 4 lines, if you're putting those lines together, or if you were extending them, what image comes to mind? Just put that in the chat. What do you think you're starting to see with these? And if you see 4 squiggly lines, that's fine too. Just put in the chat, what is it you see? Parts of a face. Gail, that's not uncommon. We had a lot of people with faces. A head with a face. Horse's tail. Tia, hey. We're seeing a woolly mammoth, Karen. Genius. A whale, Kimberly? Katie sees a whale. Clouds and water slides. Yes. There are so many things. A toucan. Okay, I do dig the toucan. I've not seen someone pull that one before. But here's the great part about it is that you can rotate these lines, the picture any which way you'd like. So you want to turn it 90 degrees, 180, totally cool. On the website of Awesome Squiggles, you'll see a photo gallery, kind of like our virtual refrigerator of other students and what they've created. And we just post that on the website. So I run this every March, April. Hopefully you can join us, but you don't have to wait that long if you want to see students or even your other colleagues play a little Awesome Squiggles. It's a great opportunity for collaboration, of conversation and perspective. So we do things like that too. Step 2 is we take them on teacher field trips. Lindsay, what's the difference between a field trip and a teacher field trip? Caroline, I'll fix that. There's been a change at Weebly that's been kind of wonky, but I'll get that fixed. I can tell you that if you just Google Awesome Squiggles, in the images, you'll see several. But Lindsay, what's the difference?
So for us, the teacher field trips are opportunities for us to go as teachers, as adults, to learn and find out what those resources are that we have in our community, that we can then build projects and experiences around for our own classrooms, and we don't have to chase any kids around.
Exactly. So we take them to local places where they can explore the curricular connections from places like museums and zoos and things like that. Every one of those kinds of places has an education outreach person. And quite often what we've discovered is that the education docent or coordinator at a museum, sometimes industry kinds of places, they're looking for ways to get into classrooms, but they don't have those connections. We don't know how to find things until we go out and fetch them. So this is some of the things that we do. Are the field trips during the school day, Sandra? That's a great question. Our VILS girls actually come together almost every Friday for professional learning with Rob and myself, or with each other. Sometimes we have guest speakers. So we take them on those Fridays, but we have done things after hours as well. So it's just whenever it works in those opportunities. We've even been over to Wichita State University. Lindsay, why don't you talk about that day?
So on this day, we were able to visit Wichita State University's innovation campus. And what was amazing about that trip is, for one, there's so many resources there that we didn't even know that they had. But we also were able to see how our universities are working with our high school students in CTE fields, especially, and ways that we can help our middle school students start learning those skills now. And those, not just the career technical ed parts, but also the technology skills that they need to get there, to be a part of these programs as high schoolers, and all of the opportunities for careers that they can have straight out of high school, you know, right into college, where they can start building some of those skills, and they have a resume by the time that they're done. And all of that's there and available for them. And I know, you know, we got to do all kinds of things. Their robotics lab, they're building things in their 3D printing labs, not just out of filament, but out of metal and all these other things that we didn't even know were there. So, you know, it was huge for us to see, how can we take these middle schoolers and build those skills for high school that they can actually do in high school and come out with a job.
And Rob, this also allows us to build super friends with our community.
Totally agree. I think, and I posted it in the chat, I think for schools to thrive, we've got to go back to our purpose, and our purpose is to produce a product of citizens for the community. And I think sometimes we get hung up on those test scores and graduation rates and all those other things. But I think if we really want to see economic impact and other things happen in a community, you've got to make those connections.
And this is the last one we went to. This one is actually located in Fort Scott, Kansas. And Jeremy, if you want to do a quick Google search, it's called the Lowell Milken Center for Unsung Heroes, if you want to drop a link in the chat. This is a website and museum of projects where students have uncovered people of history who've actually changed the world that nobody knows about. So a lot of times when we do the biography units in schools, we'll look at artists, musicians, scientists, you know, business leaders, community service folks, but we generally look at the same people over and over again. But what if your students had to go explore somebody who's changed the world in their own community, and maybe their story just hasn't been told well yet? This website will actually set you up on a curriculum, which is free, to explore your own unsung hero project. So we did this right before Thanksgiving break. And Lindsay, what say you?
This project and the museum just really opened our eyes to the impact of kids doing these project-based learning experiences. You know, the people that we were able to talk to, they became a part of this project in high school, and now, 20 some years later, they're still involved in this project. And kids have come out with so many unsung heroes that, the world would have never known about. And I'll say one of the main projects is about a lady named Irina Sendler. And what was funny is last week I saw a reading passage about that exact same story sitting on one of our printers here at school. And it was fun to see that like come full circle to someone that we've never heard of. And now my teachers are pulling those things without me telling them into their own classrooms, which was kind of awesome.
So we encourage you to go check this out for yourself. All right. So in the chat, just thinking about your own community, where are 3 places that you could tap into, or at least go and visit, maybe if it's just a meeting to bring those real world connections to your classrooms? Just toss that in the chat. If you have a zoo, put that in there. If you've got a historical museum, throw it in. Where are the super friends in your community waiting? Jeremy, what about you? You're close to the Chicago area. What is one of your favorite places to explore as an educator?
So as an educator, that's
Sure.
So in the suburbs, there are several like nature center areas, also farm bureaus where I live, that are really great for outreach education, and amazing partners too. Like they'll put it all together for you. You don't have to worry about a thing. And so those are great places. Beyond like my suburban area, like Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago is amazing. Obviously, we have the greatest museums in the world here too, which is all part of it. And then also there's kind of like the other cultural stuff, taking kids to a baseball game or other things that they might not get to do without school taking them. And those are important also.
Agreed. And some of the others that have been posted in the chat in here are terrific. When you go make super friends with those education outreach folks at these locations, they'll do things like virtual field trips for you in the classroom. And if you're friends with them, often they'll do that at no cost. You can create professional learning. So if you're going to have an in-service day and you need some of those real world connections, you can call on your super friend and say, hey, come in, let's talk some STEM that comes out of the baseball field. There's some great opportunities to real world connections. Keep thinking, friends. All right, the next step is that we start to design professional learning based on the TIMO itself. In the workbook and we may need to drop that link again, Jeremy, if you don't mind. In the workbook, I've created a template for you to lesson plan design your professional learning. It's a Canva document template. You can click on it, it opens, and you can make your own copy of these things. But again, if we want to see great things happen in the classroom with hands-on experiential learning, we can't just talk about it in PD. We need to go out and do it. So we've done things like Creativity Camp, which it was green screen activities with iPads. And we worked with our Apple person to kind of help design all of those things. We've done that. We have taken them outside to a local park and we did photo walks. And if you're not familiar with a photo walk, it's just going a walk with your iPad. And here's the cool part. Your iPads have internet built in them, so we can learn anywhere at any time. That's a big part of the VILS concept, but we don't take kids outside often enough. I know it happens, but not often enough to bring in those real world pieces with their devices outside. So taking them outdoors, we did a photo walk, and then we did some writing activities to go along with this to say, how can I use descriptive writing in my ELA classroom if I took kids outside? Lindsay, what were your thoughts on this day? This
day was a ton of fun. it was wonderful to be outside, be out of our classrooms. And, you know, all of these experiences, like Smoke said, it's not just about talking about them, but it's about experiencing them for yourself and saying, hey, I can do this. Hey, these pieces can be done. I can use my iPad outside of my school. And so just having the opportunities to be able to be immersed in those experiences is huge for us as teachers, as coaches, to say, hey, yeah, I can take these tools and go back into my classroom and do this.
And when we do these sorts of events, there's quite a bit of research that goes along from the Library of Congress on primary sources. So you can actually work with your local historical museum. You can pull things on a national level if you wish, but you can get photographs from your community that go back 50, 80 years. Take that photograph and go stand in front of a building that's been there for that long. Pull the primary source of that photograph of what that building looked like when it was originally erected, and then have the students or their staff stand in front of it like, that was then, this is now, what has changed? What questions do you have? You're actually teaching media literacy through the primary sources, but we can take them outside. Also, this photograph on the right, that was a forced perspective challenge. So there was some math that went all around it. But the idea of, can you put something up real close to the camera, and then maybe in the background you would have look like it's standing on someone's head. It's kind of that leaning Tower of Pisa when someone holds their finger up and the tower's holding itself. Same idea. There's algebra that goes along behind that. It's actually some trig, but there is some middle school level math that goes with that. And we also do some reflection based and conversational activities that go along in our professional learning days, which again are mostly on Fridays. The activity you see on the left is called the Big Paper Silent Discussion. And basically what it is you can print off a article, you can choose political cartoons, primary source photographs. You set those in the center of paper, and then you have a group of students stand around it to comment and discuss it. But here's the deal, they can't talk. They can circle information and draw an arrow out into the paper, and then they annotate their thoughts right there. So think of the close read in a big read. Does that make sense? Hopefully a little bit. And then on the one on the right, this is hexagonal thinking. And if you do Google searches for both of these, you're going to see several resources that come around. But hexagonal thinking is using hexagons to place ideas, your thoughts, based on whatever challenge or topic you throw out. And then people come together on the floor or at a table and start to link their ideas by connecting the sides of the hexagons. Lindsay, any thoughts about these?
Giving us these opportunities to reflect, and you know, we participate in a lot of these, but we're able to participate in them in ways that we can think about the learning that we're taking back to our teachers, and really talk about how what we're doing is making that impact on teaching and learning. And then everything that we do, we can take back and turn key in our own schools.
All right, next step. It's time to expand their professional learning network. Ooh, Rob, your PLN is everything. Why do you think it's important for teachers to have one?
I think when you come up with ideas, I mean, think about the things that we just shared here. Having your own PLN gives you the ability to do things you haven't even thought about, you know, and I think even when you've got to ask a question of how could I do this or how could I engage this, I think having a PLN is those community connections too. Like, how can I make this this lesson connect to something local here? Because I think, you know, as a citizen, we just our kids don't have the awareness that they need to have, and I think expanding your PLN gives you all kinds of opportunities. We've gotten more resources because of our professional learning network than you know I wouldn't know otherwise. So
here's how you do it, friends. I started with people that I already knew, and you know, I've got super friends of other teacher educators. I'm a state teacher of the year. I was 2013 Kansas state teacher of the year. So what was wonderful about that is that I can tap into rock star educators across the country pretty quickly. I'm also in the National Teachers Hall of Fame. That opened up my network a little bit bigger. But I just thought about who I knew and other educator friends, and it can be someone you just follow online and encourage them to also follow this person online. And then invite them, if you have that connection, to dial in and tell their teacher story. That's all you have to do. Say, hey, you're doing some great things. Would you be willing to share your story with us? I only need about 15 or 20 minutes. P.S. That's the exact same way you get guest speakers to do career day. P.S. Same thing. And to have them come in, they tell their story. They already inspire me. They should inspire others. So who we see here is Jed Derryberry on the left. It's the guy who wrote the book that we were talking about. And Steve Asbury is on the right. Asbury, excuse me. He runs a global Kahoot challenge. And he showed us how he can take Kahoot to a whole new level. But imagine having your entire school building all playing one Kahoot together. You could do this on math concepts. You could do it on trivia. It could be a great thing on your last day before you go away on winter break. All they need is that code, and you could have hundreds of students playing, or link between multiple schools and do that. Steve Sherman is on the left. He runs, he's out of South Africa and tells the story of how he engages children with math games in a virtual space. But we just invited them to dial in and tell their story. Lindsay, how did this help you expand your professional learning network?
So my learning network has expanded immensely from this. You know, none of these people have I ever met in person or really talked to outside of these experiences. But, you know, we met with Jed, and I think I mentioned earlier that I am not the art person. I am the last one to draw anything. But just having that opportunity and meeting somebody that really inspired me to do something. I recently was able to teach sketchnoting to my teachers, which is something that I never, ever would have ever thought I would do. You know, we had another VILS coach that did a school-wide Kahoot challenge, and I don't think that's something that any of us had ever thought about before we had these opportunities. And I think, you know, what Smoke said, you know, she's got a ton, she's got a huge network. But there are rock star educators in our own buildings. There are rock star educators in our own districts, and giving those people a chance to tell their story and their chance to shine is huge. And I think, you know, she also mentioned just following people. You know, we can follow anyone on Twitter, and just grabbing those ideas and then taking those ideas back to our own classrooms and saying, hey, I learned this from so-and-so. You know, I can't do that without that global piece and without tapping into those other educators.
Yep. Okay, so we only have like 8 minutes left, right, Jeremy? Okay, we're gonna skip this one and jump on. Step 5 is we made some real magic happen, and Rob is a rock star. He found a way with our team to take us to ISTE this last summer. So we took all of the 12 girls plus a few other folks from our district to ISTE, which opened even more opportunities for professional learning networks and ideas in the classroom. And then, Lindsay, I'm handing it over to you. Step 6 is I get to watch these girls shine. Tell your story, Lindsay.
So, you know, I talked about how I thought Smoke was crazy when she said we could do all of these things, but you know, everything that we do, we can bring back to our own schools. So there's a lot of times that we do our learning as coaches, and we, you know, we do all of these things. And when Smoke says we're going to do this, we do this. And so, you know, we've had all of these great experiences. And the big thing for me in doing all of this is just learning and being immersed in the learning as if I was a student, because as an adult, as a teacher, we don't always have those opportunities to, you know, go in and get our hands dirty and draw with chalk and build things. It's a lot of sit and get. And so what all of this has done for me is really changed my thinking in professional learning. And so now in my school, every opportunity that I have to do a learning experience with teachers, to get them, building with tape and chalk and glue and not sitting and listening and playing and laughing and going outside. How many times I know there's days that I'm like, oh, I haven't even been outside today. I didn't even know it was cold out there, but going outside and just giving teachers that opportunity to do the work that we want them to do with kids has been amazing. And, we do it at a district level, but now I've been able to take all of those things and come and build them in my own school and really get teachers involved in the learning themselves.
Love it. And the final step, my friends, is reflection. And you and I both know that that's where the real learning happens. But we don't have time often to put reflection in the classroom, though yet the research says that is the most critical thing that we need to do. So periodically, and we do this every 3 to 4 weeks, I'll run another reflection activity. This particular one is a collaborative poem. The credit goes to Sarah Brown Wessling, 2010 National Teacher of the Year. In the workbook, there is a step-by-step guide on how to do this collaborative poem. It's fantastic to use with peers after a work of time together, or at the end of a unit with students. If they're jumping deep, some of you are talking about the Holocaust unit. At the end, reflect, what are your takeaways? But that's in the document for you. We also look at the National Teacher Leader Standards. These are pretty powerful just to see where are we growing as teacher leaders. We're not just building exemplary educators. We want them to be leaders in their schools and their communities. So we reflect, where have we grown? Where are we still seeing ourselves needing to improve? And we're going to skip this one. So last step, because we've got 4 minutes from today, what is something that you could implement in 5 minutes, 5 days, or 5 weeks? Put that in the chat for us. Jeremy, hopefully you found something you could steal today.
I found all sorts of things I can steal, including my favorite thing is the field trips with grownups. Like, bring them and let them explore. And that's the best way to bring it to your classroom.
Agreed. I love all this stuff that people are excited about. Yes, we all need to play. Hands-on things for folks. And field trips matter. I don't know how to say it any other way. They matter. When I take folks to these places, you can just see their wheels go like this. And I can talk about things all day long, but they need to experience. Experiential learning matters. So I encourage you to see if you can't either design your own teacher PD field trip or work with a local organization to make that happen. If you get really wild and you want to try something on an international level, there's a website called Fund, F-U-N-D, for teachers. And that allows you with another colleague to plan a international trip to be funded. It's a hard set of paperwork to fill out, but something to explore. All right, Jeremy, I think we wrapped it up. We should ask any questions folks have. I'm hoping, oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, you're super thorough, so you know to get questions. So first, I want to thank everybody for attending this session. I want to thank Lindsay and Rob and Smoke for obviously putting together an amazing session, sharing all the things that they've been doing in Wichita. Please, at some time today, make sure you check that you attended this session in Schedule, and then also rate the session in Schedule so that we have a little bit of feedback from you. I'm going to volunteer, Smoke, here that if I know there's a lot of coaches and a lot of teachers in this call, if you bring these ideas to building leaders or district leaders and they aren't seeing the vision, I can guarantee you that if you connect them with Smoke, she would be happy to speak with them and try to bring them along because she is very giving and helps to raise everybody's bar. So once again, thank you for attending. Thank you, Wichita, for presenting and putting this together. And we will see you all soon. Thank you.
And one last little bit, there's upcoming sessions they wanted you to know about. Just keep those in mind for this afternoon. And then if you have questions from us, here is our contact information. So thank you so much for your time. I'm glad you guys came to play.
Thank you, everybody.